Just like Diddy, Epstein didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing.
And I'm sure that's probably not public information yet, but who's the person that's number one on that invitation list?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
And I can get on that list,
yes,
right?
Without a doubt, you are invited.
That is so generous of you. Cheers to that.
See you at the White Party.
Who's old? He looks almost as bad as Madonna. He is bloated. I mean, you could tell this guy's like partied a little bit too much. He's got like the big bloated look, like, ugh, step away from the booze. And he is now dating a teenager, literally a teenager. She's 19. He's in the news every week for how he won't date anybody past age 25. If he does, it makes news. And now he's actually gone down to a teenager. She could literally be his daughter.
The internet doesn't wait for facts anymore. It reacts first and asks
DiCaprio.
Candace Owens opened the segment in a notably serious tone, saying that Hollywood has once again found itself at the center of uncomfortable public debate as renewed online discussion surrounding the Epstein scandal continues to gain momentum. As the story resurfaced across social media platforms, commentary shows, and online forums, a number of high-profile names began circulating in public conversation, including Leonardo DiCaprio. Owens was careful to draw a distinction early in her remarks, emphasizing that the appearance of a person's name in online discussions or documents should not be interpreted as evidence of criminal conduct. At the same time, she argued that the intensity of the public response signals a broader cultural change, one in which fame, influence, and celebrity status no longer automatically insulate public figures from widespread scrutiny. In her view, the reaction reflects growing public skepticism toward elite institutions and a heightened demand for transparency and accountability, regardless of a person's status or reputation.
There you have it, you guys. That is transparency. That's transparency. I mean, I don't know what more you want from your government. Do you feel like they're laughing at us? I feel like they're laughing at us. We are definitely in clown world. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan because I think he plays a role in the coming AI system of controlling global affairs. But he did nail it with this clown meme tweet. I will say that. We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list. Interestingly enough, though, I was contacted by someone, a certain someone. For those of you who enjoyed my Brigitte series, Xavier Poussard has been working quite diligently over the last couple of years, not just on the story of Brigitte Macron and this weird ring that happens in France, but also that investigation brought him to Jeffrey Epstein. Because Jeffrey Epstein, as Ghislaine Maxwell, she was French as well, Mossad, and the investigation of Brigitte brought him to Jeffrey Epstein, and he said to me, Candace, would you want to do a series on Epstein? He asked me this about 2 months ago. And what I heard was, would you like to die? Would you like to die? Because that's kind of where, do you want to play a game sort of a thing? And maybe where our government, with all of their resources, is failing, I don't know, maybe it will be up to us. So what can I say, guys? Stay tuned.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my little Men in Black tool, and just wipe your memory real quick. Phew. Phew. She didn't say any of that. Phew.
Sorry.
Candace Owens leaned forward and said that what frustrates her most is not simply the fact that one actor's name is trending online, but the broader culture that allowed powerful social circles to operate for decades without meaningful scrutiny. She argued that, for years, elite gatherings were portrayed as glamorous markers of influence, wealth, and social success. Invitations to exclusive events were often treated as status symbols, proof that someone had reached the highest levels of fame and access. However, she said that in the post-Epstein era, public perception of those same environments has changed dramatically. Spaces that were once celebrated for their exclusivity and prestige are now being re-examined with far greater suspicion, as many people question the systems of power, privilege, and silence that surrounded them for so long.
The FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go
Sean
ahead.
Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that.
Candace Owens argued that Leonardo DiCaprio has spent years building one of the most carefully cultivated and respected public images in Hollywood. Through award-winning performances, high-profile collaborations, and his long-standing environmental activism, DiCaprio has come to represent prestige, influence, and credibility within the entertainment industry. However, Owens maintained that a strong public reputation should never place any individual beyond scrutiny or difficult questions. In her view, the reason audiences are reacting so strongly is not solely because a prominent celebrity's name has surfaced in online conversations, but because public trust in powerful institutions and elite networks has already been deeply eroded. She also criticized what she described as selective media treatment, arguing that when lesser-known figures become linked to controversial discussions, coverage is often immediate, aggressive, and relentless. By contrast, she said, when A-list celebrities are mentioned in conversations related to Epstein, media reporting tends to become more cautious, restrained, and carefully framed. According to Owens, that contrast has only fueled public frustration, reinforcing the belief among many viewers that fame and status can still influence how stories are covered and how seriously certain names are examined.
She went out there and claimed there were tens of thousands of hours of tape. There are, by the way, but they are child pornography. The reason the FBI is not releasing them is because those tapes do not include underage people with third parties on Epstein Island. That is not what the tapes are. I also have sources in the federal government who are covering this stuff and have seen the documents. Those tapes are just child porn. That's all. That's what they are. That's why the FBI is not releasing them. As far as the Epstein list, what I have been told by my sources is that there is no Epstein list, that basically there's a black book of Jeffrey Epstein contacts. And the vast majority of those contacts are already out there publicly. That's why you know names like Prince Andrew or Alan Dershowitz or some of the names that have been mentioned here. Those contacts, there is no evidence, according to the DOJ and the FBI, and again, that's public, there's no evidence that any of those third parties were having girls trafficked to them. And that is not evidence that was made clear, certainly, to the DOJ or the FBI. Here is Tucker then asserting that it was actually Mossad. Again, without evidence, not a shock. Of course, this is where Tucker was going. This has become the hot speculation on the internet, is without evidence. You say that Mossad was running Jeffrey Epstein. When I say without evidence, I mean without evidence. Naftali Bennett, the former Israeli prime minister, said, quote, as a former Israeli prime minister, with the Mossad having reported directly to me, I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. And in fact, I followed up with the former prime minister, Naftali Bennett, and what he told me is that Mossad has not been active in the United States or against the United States since the Jonathan Pollard scandal of 1987, when a U.S. Army contractor who's actually working for the Navy revealed classified information to the Israeli government. He was prosecuted by the United States government and ended up in prison.
I didn't watch this whole clip. This is
years.
Hilarious.
And so Israel since then has not spied on the United States with Mossad.
Okay, guys. Well, there you have it. It's just, I don't know how he does it with a straight face. I just like, well, anyway, guys, there's millions of emails, but don't even it's like, Mossad hasn't been doing nothing. I know it seems weird because BB's like always here or whatever, and we seem to be doing their bidding everywhere. But the Mossad just said in 9 days, they were like, I'm a chill. And they haven't done a single thing here at all. I know it might look that way. Miriam Adel said, she doesn't even know their name. She doesn't know who they are, actually. She's doing her thing, and she's giving Trump $200 million, but it ain't got nothing to do with the Mossad. So I just wanted to bring you that stunning report from Ben Shapiro. Thank you for clarifying, Benjamin.
What? 21 cars? What? They could have gave me a car.
She said audiences notice that difference almost immediately, and that it often reinforces the perception that certain powerful stars are treated more carefully than others. Owens once again made it clear that she was not accusing Leonardo DiCaprio of committing any crime. Rather, she argued that the larger issue is one of transparency and public accountability. In her view, when influential names appear in controversial conversations, even indirectly, the public expects openness, clarity, and a willingness to address legitimate questions. She said that silence, hesitation, or overly cautious responses can have the opposite effect, creating an environment in which speculation grows even stronger. Her tone became more forceful as she turned to what she described as Hollywood's deeply interconnected culture. According to Owens, the entertainment industry functions through overlapping social and professional networks, where major actors, producers, executives, financiers, and other influential figures often move within the same circles. For years, she suggested, those relationships were largely accepted as part of the business and rarely examined in any serious way. Exclusive access, private events, and close associations among the industry's most powerful figures were often seen as normal features of elite success. But in the aftermath of the Epstein scandal, she argued, the public now views those same connections through a far more critical lens. Owens said the scandal fundamentally changed how audiences interpret proximity to power. Connections that may have once have been ignored, dismissed, or treated as insignificant are now being revisited with greater scrutiny. In that context, she argued, even indirect associations can become part of a wider public conversation about influence, accountability, and the systems that protect the powerful. Whether those questions lead anywhere or not, she said, the public mood has clearly shifted. People are no longer willing to accept silence as a sufficient response when elite networks
And
come
many
under
of these things that
suspicion.
you may have thought were conspiracies, things that I grew up thinking were conspiracies, are so obviously not conspiracies at all. It's getting interesting, but we can put that as another thing that I was right about. Unfortunately, I don't want to be right about these things sometimes, but when it came to Emmanuel Macron, yeah, that's been pretty obvious. Any woman looks at Brigitte and just goes, nah, nope, something not right there. When I said it, it was a conspiracy. Now these Epstein emails are getting released and people are looking up. And by people, I mean the mainstream media. They're willing to accept that maybe I was telling the truth. He's also married to a dude because he's gay, so that makes sense. But I guess we'll wait for the next email dump before the reliably dishonest press is prepared to admit that part too. And this text chain that is happening, they are discussing Emmanuel Macron's boyfriend. It is Epstein. And I believe in other chats, he's talking with Steve Bannon. And this says, along with some other tidbits, I was shown a photo of Macron's boyfriend. Ah, hypocrisy. There are more emails referencing the fact that Emmanuel Macron is gay. And I think the biggest clue was that he married a dude. But apparently now people are willing to accept that Emmanuel Macron is not a straight Catholic man by any stretch of an imagination. No, in fact, I know his trigger is MK Ultra. And his trigger is anybody that discusses his wife. And there's something there. Okay. Now that we are kind of graduating into the Epstein files as a society, you can start to separate that all of these facts from fiction, recognize that the media is out there to consistently lie and to protect the elites. They have money, they have power, they do not have the truth on their side.
From her perspective, this isn't just about information. It's about perception. The internet doesn't just share stories anymore. It shapes them, it amplifies them, and it decides how people interpret them before the fact.
Candace Owens also turned her attention to the emotional response from the public, noting that reactions to Leonardo DiCaprio's name appearing in uncomfortable online discussions have been deeply divided. She said many fans who have long admired DiCaprio for his film career, activism, and carefully maintained public image respond defensively when his name surfaces in any controversial context. At the same time, others see these conversations as validation of concerns they have raised for years about elite social culture, celebrity privilege, and the lack of scrutiny surrounding powerful networks. According to Owens, both reactions reveal how strongly celebrity narratives shape public perception. When those narratives are challenged, she argued, the response is often immediate, emotional, and intensely polarized. She then shifted to the growing role of social media, arguing that the digital age has fundamentally changed how public accountability works. In the past, she said, controversial stories could gradually disappear if major traditional news outlets chose not to emphasize them. Today, however, online communities are able to revive old interviews, event photography, public appearances, and archived footage, allowing discussions to continue long after the formal news cycle has moved on. In Owens' view, this shift has made it much harder for reputation alone to preserve public trust. A polished image, she suggested, no longer guarantees protection when audiences have the tools to revisit old associations and re-examine them in real time. Owens also stressed that discussions involving Epstein-related associations carry enormous weight and therefore must be approached with caution and factual discipline. She emphasized that being in the same social orbit as a controversial figure does not automatically imply criminal wrongdoing. At the same time, she argued that the public has every right to examine patterns of elite networking and to ask why certain powerful individuals were connected to those circles in the first place. Her position, as she framed it, was not that association alone proves guilt, but that influential networks should not be exempt from legitimate public scrutiny simply because of status, fame, or carefully managed public relations. Her tone softened somewhat as she acknowledged the real danger of misinformation in the digital environment. Owens warned viewers not to confuse viral speculation with verified evidence, noting that names can trend rapidly without context and that rumors often spread faster than facts. Even so, she maintained that asking questions about elite systems is not the same as making accusations. In her view, transparency serves everyone involved. It protects the public from secrecy and also protects individuals from being unfairly judged through rumor alone. For that reason, she argued, clarity and openness are far more constructive than silence. As the segment continued, Owens widened the discussion beyond Leonardo DiCaprio and framed the Epstein scandal as part of a much larger cultural reckoning over power, privilege, and public trust. She said the reason audiences react so strongly whenever a celebrity name resurfaces in these conversations is because the public no longer treats elite networks as automatically credible or beyond question. That skepticism, she argued, can be healthy if it remains responsible, measured, and grounded in fact. In her telling, the shift is not just about one individual, but about a broader loss of confidence in institutions and social systems that were once shielded by prestige. Owens returned repeatedly to what she saw as the consequences of silence. She argued that when major public figures decline to address controversial discussions altogether, they can unintentionally create a vacuum that invites even more speculation. While she acknowledged that no one is obligated to respond to every rumor circulating online, she maintained that openness often builds credibility in ways silence cannot. According to her, when audiences see selective responses, muted coverage, or complete avoidance of a topic, many interpret that not as neutrality, but as evidence that the powerful are still being handled differently from everyone else. Toward the end of the segment, Owens reflected on how quickly public perception can change in the digital era. A celebrity may spend decades building an image of prestige, discipline, and admiration, only to find that image suddenly questioned when old associations resurface online. She emphasized that such scrutiny does not by itself prove guilt. However, she said it does demonstrate how fragile reputation has become in an age where archived material can be instantly rediscovered and widely circulated. The digital environment, she suggested, has permanently altered the relationship between fame and accountability. She closed with a firm and unmistakable message. Hollywood's era of unquestioned admiration is over. Fame, she argued, no longer guarantees immunity from public scrutiny. Whether or not Leonardo DiCaprio chooses to respond to the ongoing online discussion, Owens said the broader cultural shift is already clear. Audiences are watching more closely, asking tougher questions, and demanding greater transparency from the entertainment industry's most powerful figures. At the same time, she concluded, accountability must be balanced with fairness. Questions should be asked responsibly, without rushing to judgment. But in today's climate, she argued, silence and selective coverage only deepen public distrust. Image alone is no longer enough. Clarity matters.
people that are in the position to actually know the people's names on the list, those people are probably in trouble.
Yeah.
Because that's a crazy piece of information to have.
Look.
No one's been tried. No one's been brought. No one's been discussed. We know who went there. We know flight logs. No one talks about anything. There's no effort to prosecute. There's no effort to. And then you have Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in jail for sex trafficking to who? Leonardo DiCaprio is voting for Kamala Harris. Has nothing to do with the Diddy parties.
when you guys were talking,
nothing to do with the Diddy parties. He's endorsed Kamala Harris because of climate change.
Then did you see him? He's on a yacht and then on a private jet. Literally like last week. Do you know Diddy won a lawsuit against that alcohol company? The alcohol company,
Ciroc.
Ciroc. He won like $1 billion deal, and once that happened, then this all came out.
In the end, Candace Owens framed the issue as something far larger than any one celebrity or trending headline. Her central argument was that the public is no longer willing to accept prestige, fame, and carefully managed reputations as substitutes for transparency. While she repeatedly stressed that questions should never be confused with proof, she maintained that powerful institutions and elite social networks must be open to scrutiny in a way they often were not in the past. As public trust in those systems continues to erode, the demand for clarity, fairness, and accountability has only grown stronger. For Owens, the message was clear. In today's media environment, silence no longer protects reputations. It often raises even more questions.
Offered an opening statement before his testimony. Would you listen to this? As someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, okay. Not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not sweetheart deals. Sure, Jan. The reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice, but healing. Okay. You and your crazy-ass wife used George Stephanopoulos and James Carville to create whole war rooms to destroy the young women who were accusing you of far less than Jeffrey Epstein was ever accused of. You destroyed them. You organized massive PR campaigns to undermine their credibility, woman after woman after woman, who we now know were telling the truth, and who I certainly believe were telling the truth about you. Kathleen Willey is one. Juanita Broderick is another. Paula Jones is another. Jennifer Flowers is another. So just fucking spare me that you now really have a lot of concern about the women and girls allegedly caught up in the Epstein web. The reason I'm here is the girls and women whose lives Epstein destroyed deserve justice and healing. Oh my God, you're such a fucking liar. This guy just wrote in his stupid letter trying to get out of this deposition, along with his wife, co-signed literally by his wife. There comes a time in every person's life where they have to decide if they're going to roll over for this fascistic government or whether they're prepared to fight. That time for us is now. They were ready. They wanted to be martyred. We are going to fight this administration. We have no information about Epstein. This is just a complete bully job. And then